Hello, music fans. You're watching Death by Unicorn, where we talk about metal, rock, and prog music. And today I'm doing Larry Graves, aka the Canadian Studmuffin. I'm answering the questions in his 2026 music tag. A bit late on this. I think he posted his video where he asked these questions and answered them for himself and called on others to answer the questions. I think that was about 3 weeks ago or so. But I kind of put it on my list as a video that maybe I wanted to make. Took my sweet time deciding how to answer the questions, and now I'm making the video. So you can play along too, of course. I'll put the link to his video in the description and the questions as well, so that you can make your own response. You can answer in the comments or make your own video response and share that either here on my video or over on his. Now, first question is, what was the first band or solo artist you became a fan of? For me, that was probably when I was like 6 years old and I became a fan of Celine Dion. Then between the age 6 to 9, it was more like the pop acts that were big at the time in the late 90s, like Spice Girls, Backstreet Boys, Hanson, and Aqua. Then around age 10, that's when file sharing sites like Napster, Kazaa, and all those started getting big. And that's when I discovered some funnier artists like Weird Al Yankovic and his parody music, and some of the edgier, funnier pop punk bands from the time like Blink 182 and Sum 41. Got into that a bit. When I was 11, Avril Lavigne's debut came out. I liked that. And that's also when I got the Eminem album, The Eminem Show, and became a big Eminem fan. For a couple of years, I got all his albums up to that point, and I actually just sold my Eminem albums all this year in 2026 because I just don't ever listen to rap anymore, really. And at 14, that's when I started playing guitar and got into bands like System of a Down. Let me see. There we go. Probably one of the first albums that I got that I still own. Mesmerized and Hypnotized from 2025. And that's what got me into metal. And then Protest the Hero the same year kind of blew my mind and got me into progressive metal. Their guitar playing was just off the charts. And I've been into all the greats of progressive metal, progressive rock, metalcore, post-hardcore, alternative metal, and mathcore ever since, while also building up my knowledge of and appreciation of classic rock and alternative rock and traditional heavy metal and hard rock as well. The second question is, what was the last album you listened to? For me, that was Big Big Train's album Woodcut that just came out this year. Really excellent album. And I love everything Big Big Train does. They're a very consistent band, always putting out beautiful music. They're prog rock. And their newest one from this year is great. What are your favorite music genres is the third question. So my favorite music genre, of course, is prog metal. So bands like Between the Buried and Me with their album Colors, really one of my favorites. Them and Protest the Heroes Kazaya, as well as, of course, the legendary Dream Theater with Metropolis Part 2, Scenes from a Memory, and other prog metal bands that I like. There's so many to name, but I'll rapid fire a few: Haken, Opeth, Caligula's Horse, Periphery, Symphony X, Tesseract, Tool, Leprous, Devin Townsend, Mastodon, and more. And then my other genres that I like, next one would be prog rock. Favorite there is Rush, This Is Moving Pictures from 1981, which is great. But then I also love King Crimson, Yes, Gentle Giant, Pink Floyd from the older stuff. But I also love modern prog rock, like Thank You Scientist, King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, Toe Hider, The Deer Hunter, Steven Wilson, Porcupine Tree, Bubble Math, Spock's Beard, Wobbler, the Mars Volta, and more. And then I love metalcore as well, with bands like Every Time I Die, Under Oath, Atreyu, All That Remains, I Wrestled the Bear Once, other bands like that. Post-hardcore is probably my fourth favorite genre, with bands like, although, it's pretty close between post-hardcore and metalcore. Prog metal and prog rock are by far my two favorite genres. Then it's almost a tie between metalcore and post-hardcore. Post-hardcore, I love bands like Thrice, Dance Gavin Dance, Chiodos, Hail the Sun, Idola, The Fall of Troy, and more like that. Then fifth favorite genre is probably alternative metal with bands like System of a Down, Deftones, 12 Foot Ninja, more like that. I like not as much the super popular new metal bands like, I do like some Linkin Park and some Slipknot and stuff, but they're not I like the weirder, more experimental bands in that scene, like System of a Down and Deftones. On the mathcore side, that's another genre that I enjoy from time to time, mostly the Dillinger Escape Plan and Rollo Tomasi. And then just rock, like alternative rock, like Foo Fighters, Muse, and Muse, more bands like that. And then, of course, the classic rock bands like the Beatles, Queen, Deep Purple, that kind of stuff. And those are most of the genres that I like, but I, of course, dabble and try out other genres, even like classical and electronic and all sorts of stuff, jazz fusion from time to time. The fourth question is about how many CDs and vinyl records do you own? I have 43 vinyl records and 144 CDs. So not a massive collection compared to some people that take collecting seriously, but quite a bit for someone my age. Most people my age just listen to streaming and don't have that much physical media. I don't know too many people that have more than me. Maybe a couple. Fifth question is, who's your favorite Beatle, both in the Beatles and as a solo artist? For me, it's Paul McCartney, both in the Beatles. I liked his songs a lot, but I like all of them really. But then as a solo artist, definitely Paul McCartney. I think he's the only one whose solo catalog, he's the only one where I've listened to all his solo albums. So I do still kind of need to do a deep dive on John Lennon, George Harrison, and Ringo Starr's solo catalog. I've heard bits and pieces of all of them, but I haven't listened to their entire catalogs yet. But maybe I should. That could be an interesting thing to dive into. The sixth question is, how often do you listen to the radio? And for me, the answer is, I guess the options are, do you listen to it a lot, a little, or never? I put a little, but it's close to never. I only listen to it in the car if I forget to play something on Spotify via Android Auto. Usually when I get in the car, the first thing I do is plug my phone in and it'll just play what I have on Spotify on my phone. But sometimes I forget, or sometimes if my wife's driving or something, I won't, or if I'm in somebody else's car or something. So I do hear the radio, maybe in like the grocery store and stuff like that, but I don't really actively choose to listen to it. Every now and then I'll hear something good on it. Seventh question is, what is a favorite artist that you love that most people don't seem to like much? Most artists that I love are kind of niche, the ones that I've talked about already in this video, but most of those artists are pretty well loved in that niche, like in the niche of prog rock and prog metal. But most of them are also kind of completely ignored or misunderstood by people who are not into those scenes. So for this question, I tried to pick some artists that a lot of people know about and that I've heard a lot of people diss, so that I could defend them a bit here. So first artist that I love, and maybe love's a strong word for these, because these artists are hit or miss. Like, I understand why people don't like them, but they have some great stuff that makes me respect them. So first one I'm going to mention is Red Hot Chili Peppers. I don't like all their albums, but I do really enjoy Stadium Arcadium, Californication, and Blood Sugar Sex Magic. I respect some of their earlier stuff too, the funk punk stuff from the 80s, even though I don't really love it or like the sounds of it or want to listen to it much. I think it was kind of a cool sound that they were pioneering. Not for me, but I respect it. And then I get why people don't like them, though. They can be a bit hit or miss over their career. Everything they've done since Stadium Arcadium for me has been a bit mid. It's not terrible or anything, but yeah, I get why people don't like it. But I still enjoy some of their stuff. Another one is Coldplay. Again, I don't like all their albums, but I do love their debut, Parachutes, and their third album, X and Y. And I even sometimes somewhat enjoy their second album, A Rush of Blood to the Head. But after their first three albums, though, they really dropped off for me. They've never been completely terrible. They're usually at least somewhat good and pleasant, but they became pretty boring pop rock. I really don't like when the collabs they do with other artists when they bring in like big pop artists. It just doesn't sound right to me with them. It doesn't work. And when they try to like make their songs super dancey and EDM, like no, not into that for Coldplay. But when they're just like play like an actual rock band, they're pretty good and they have a cool kind of relaxing, beautiful, sad sound to them. And sometimes when they play and get a little experimental with their rock and get even a little proggy from time to time, dare I say, I actually kind of enjoy that too. But I get why people don't like them. I think that when they went too pop, they kind of lost their magic charm. And then last one that I'll mention for artists that I enjoy that a lot of people kind of don't like or make fun of is Dragon Force, possibly my favorite power metal band, if you don't count like progressive power metal stuff. And they're probably best known for their song from this album, Through the Fire and Flames is the song, and the album's Inhuman Rampage. The song Through the Fire and Flames was in the video game Guitar Hero 3, which I loved in high school. I got into them for their amazing but silly, cheesy, over-the-top guitar work. And I think they're just a really fun band. My hot take, though, an unpopular opinion on Dragon Force is that I like their stuff with their new singer even better than their stuff with their old singer. And I get why people don't like Dragon Force much because they are quite cheesy and over the top, but I still enjoy them. The eighth question is, which underrated bands do you love? And I think most bands that I love are underrated because prog metal and prog rock as a whole is underrated when it comes to the masses. But I just understand their niche genres. But even within those niche genres, I'm going to have to go with a great Canadian band that started out being called Today I Caught the Plague and then changed their name to The Kindred. This is their album as The Kindred, Life and Lucidity, their last full-length album. And it's from, I think, 2014. They put out a couple EPs after this with a new singer, but I didn't enjoy those as much. But yeah, their stuff under their first name, Today I Caught the Plague. This is their EP, and this is their first studio album, Lore. Are awesome. They're a prog metal band, and they just have a wild singer and a very unique sound that I really enjoy. And every album they made, they kind of reinvented their sound. Every release they did, even just cool band. And in terms of why they're underrated, like most of the bands I love have more than like 1,000 monthly listeners on Spotify, but this band, let me check right now, the Kindred, how many they have. I think they're like under 1,000. So they're pretty small, not super widely known. 561 monthly listeners. Let's get them some more. They really deserve it. They're very talented. The guitarist from that band is now a touring guitarist for Protest the Hero. The band doesn't really exist anymore. They disbanded, but their music is awesome. And number 9, ninth question is, which band do you think is the most overrated? So for overrated, I'd have to go with a really big artist here because mean, if they're going to be overrated, they've got to be highly rated, right? So I might get some heat for this, but I think from what I've heard from these bands like the Rolling Stones, I think are a bit overrated. U2, the Ramones, and the Eagles. I'm not saying those bands are bad. They all have some songs that I like. None of them are completely terrible. But I can't really get behind how those bands are some of the biggest bands in the world of all time when I can think of so many better bands. And if we're counting solo artists, then pretty much all bubblegum pop artists and hip hop and country artists that are popular, I would say, are overrated. I don't really like listening to any of them. But if we're sticking to genres that I cover, like rock, maybe Elvis Presley might be overrated, I'd say. I get he's a pioneer, so I might get some flack for that. But in terms of just like, do I want to listen to a bunch of his music? Probably not. But still respect for kind of the early pioneers. And last question, number 10. Which musician's death affected you the most? Strangely for me, they're both drummers, even though I'm a guitar player. Sometimes there's certain drummers that I get into that I like. And first one's obviously Neil Peart from Rush. I'll be seeing Rush this year for the first time, but it'll be without Neil Peart. And yeah, he just had such a personality and uniqueness to his drumming and character and a way of composing the drum parts in a way that was very musical and enjoyable and iconic. And the other drummer whose death affected me most was the Rev from Avenged Sevenfold. This is his last album that he played on, their self-titled album. He's a one-of-a-kind drummer too, just like Neil Peart. Has his own personality. He is also a singing drummer, and he composes and plays piano and stuff on albums. So he's a multi-instrumentalist, vocalist. He's not the lead vocalist of the band, but he does backing vocals and occasional like lead on certain songs. And he just left way too young as well. And this is the album they put out, the first album they put out after his death. It's almost like a tribute to him, and some of his vocals feature on the track Fiction. He also wrote most of the drum parts on here, but then the drum parts got played by Mike Portnoy from Dream Theater. Great album, Nightmare by Avenged Sevenfold. And those are all the questions. Let me know what you think of my answers down in the comments, and leave your answers as well down there, or make your own video response either to this video, share it in the comments of this video, or share it in the comments of Larry's video, which I'll also share in my description here. Good idea for these questions, Larry. That was fun to answer them, and hope somebody enjoyed watching this. If you like metal, rock, and prog music, you've come to the right place. I post my first impressions of new stuff that comes out every week. And my next video in my new Music Picks 2026 series, I'll be talking about new releases from Good Tiger, Mumford & Sons, Silosis, Abstracted, and Hilary Duff. So stay tuned for that, and peace out.